Hello and welcome to DOZ Monologues, hosted by Eturuvie Erebor. DOZ Monologues, also known as DOZ Chronicles Audio Stories, aims to educate, inspire, and drive societal change. All stories are written and narrated by Eturuvie Erebor, and all rights are reserved, including the right of reproduction in whole or in part in any form. This is episode 13, titled Co-Wives and Consequences. If you're listening on YouTube, please subscribe, like, and share. Thank you. Co-Wives and Consequences. She was once my friend, but she became my co-wife. I thought I was being clever. I convinced myself that I was outmaneuvering her and securing something better for myself. I believed I held the upper hand and was wise beyond my years. However, as everything unfolded, I came to realize that my actions had only trapped me, leaving me with nothing but regret and a profound sense of having dug myself into a hole from which I could not easily escape. Lolade was my friend, despite the 7-year age difference between us. We became friends through her younger sister, Abiola. When Abiola passed away, Lolade and I grew closer, each of us seeking comfort in the other after losing someone we both cherished. Lolade married at a young age, just before completing her secondary education, and only a few months shy of turning 18. Her husband lived in Lagos, the largest and most vibrant metropolis in the country. This was a significant step up from our hometown, Ajase, and certainly better than Ilorin, the state's capital. She was fortunate. Very few girls from Ajase ever got the chance to move to Ilorin, let alone to Lagos. For us, Lagos represented the pinnacle of aspiration, akin to traveling abroad or even reaching heaven. Her circumstances became a source of both admiration and envy among those of us who remained in Ajase, dreaming of lives that extended far beyond the limits of our small town. Married life brought many blessings to Lolade. Whenever she and her husband Wale returned to Ajase, they always appeared well put together, radiating happiness and prosperity. I made a point of visiting them whenever they were in town. Lolade was generous with both her money and her belongings. She often gave me money and passed on her old dresses. Her children came early and in quick succession. She had 3 pregnancies, resulting in 4 children within the first 4 years of her marriage. Whenever she visited Ajase with her babies, I would look after her children, becoming an integral part of her support system whenever she was home. I thought her life was perfect, and I envied it. As I approached my 18th birthday, men asked for my hand in marriage, but I turned them down. There were village men who couldn't offer me anything beyond the confines of our small town, and I was growing weary of Ajase. I longed to move to a big city, specifically Lagos, just like Lolade had. I was unwilling to settle for Ilorin, and as for Ajase, God forbid. My desire to further my education stemmed from a deep longing to break free from the cycle of poverty and the limitations of life in the village. All around me, I saw people with a university education leave Ajase to work in prominent companies in the cities. Some even went as far as Lagos. I kept my ambitions to myself, but I was determined to go to university in Lagos. Lolade lived there, and I knew she would support me. In Lagos, I could meet and marry a city man, rather than be pursued by the village men who showed an interest in me. These were my thoughts when Wale came to spend some time in Ajase without Lolade and their children. I was 19, had completed secondary school, and was enrolled in a JAM class to prepare for the exam. Despite my parents repeatedly telling me they could not afford to support my education beyond secondary school. They believed it would be better for me to get married and help sponsor my 5 younger siblings. I was surprised to see him in town, as I did not know he was coming. While walking past an unfinished building that I usually passed on my way to and from JAM class, I spotted him speaking with a group of men who seemed to be builders. "Good afternoon, sir," I greeted him enthusiastically, happy to see him. "Bisi," he exclaimed, looking me up and down with admiration, his smile widening. "What a pleasant surprise. How are you?" "I am fine, thank you, sir. How are Lolade and the kids?" "They are all fine," he replied. "They didn't come with me as the kids are in school. I came home to supervise my building project, and I will be here for 6 weeks." "Is this your house?" I asked, somewhat surprised. I had passed by this house a few times, but never thought it belonged to him. "Yes, it is mine," he said. "I'm trying to complete the construction because I'm tired of staying in the family compound every time I visit. There's no privacy there. My father gave me this land during my last visit in December, and I've been sending money home for the building project. I came to spend some time here to see what's being done and to help speed up the process." "That's a great idea," I said. "With any luck, it should be ready before you leave. When you, Lolade, and the kids return, you'll be able to come straight here." As I spoke, I looked the house over, trying to imagine what it would look like once completed. It was a bungalow with a beautiful design, and Wale took me in to have a look around. There were 4 ensuite bedrooms and a 1-bedroom mini flat behind with separate access, which a staff member or a relative could use. I was in awe as we toured the house, thinking how lucky Lolade would be when she returns to live in this beautiful place. She would sleep in the lovely main bedroom and cook in the kitchen, which boasted modern facilities. In contrast, my family lived in a compound with simple rooms. My parents had 2 rooms. One served as their bedroom while the other functioned as the sitting room. At night, my siblings and I slept in the sitting room, while my parents occupied the bedroom. Our communal kitchen, bathroom, and toilets were located outside the building, which comprised a long row of rooms. Lolade had grown up in a similar environment, and even Wale's family home mirrored that experience. I was truly impressed and a bit envious to see the house he was building for himself and his family. Although it wasn't the most impressive house in Ajase, as some villagers who had moved away returned to construct beautiful modern homes, it ranked among the prettiest in the village. The following day, on my way from JAM classes, I saw Wale again at the building site, supervising the workers. He invited me to sit with him and have a chat, and he bought me a cold drink. I started spending more time with him. I left my JAM classes earlier, and on some days I didn't attend at all. Initially, we just talked, but soon we started leaving the site to check into a hotel for a few hours. Although I never intended to have an affair with Lolade's husband, I didn't resist his advances and took full advantage of the situation. The house was completed and furnished before he left for Lagos, and he started visiting Ajase every other month for an extended weekend. On such occasions, I would sneak out of my home to spend time with him. The bedroom I had imagined Lolade sleeping in became my own, and the kitchen I pictured her cooking in was now where I prepared meals. In fact, I bought all the kitchen utensils and arranged the space myself. I could navigate the kitchen blindfolded, while Lolade had yet to set foot in it, making it truly my kitchen. Our relationship continued in secret for 2 years. During this time, Wale prevented Lolade and the children from visiting Ajase. With every trip he made to Ajase, our bond grew stronger. I eagerly anticipated his visits, as he always came bearing beautiful gifts and gave me money before leaving. These tokens of affection made me happy, and I cherished the time we spent together. Despite this happiness, I knew that the situation could not remain hidden forever. Ajase was a small village where news traveled fast, and it was almost impossible for anything to stay a secret for long. I realized it was only a matter of time before word of our affair reached Lolade in Lagos. Additionally, my mother grew suspicious of my actions. With no other choice, I eventually confessed the truth about my relationship with Wale to her. "So where is he taking this relationship?" she asked. "Is he planning to marry you? You're already 21 years old. Lolade was much younger when he married her. If he wants to marry you, he should express his intentions to your father. I won't tolerate your sneaking around with him while suitors are waiting in line to marry you." My mother's words resonated with me, and I realized she was right. When I saw Wale next, I brought up the issue directly. To my surprise, he did not hesitate. He agreed to do exactly as my mother had suggested. He asked me to inform my family that he intended to come and see them formally. After my bride price was paid, we spent a few days at the house in Ajase, enjoying a brief honeymoon together. Those days passed quickly, and soon it was time for me to travel with him to Lagos. This journey marked the first time I would see Lolade since my relationship with Wale had begun, and I couldn't help but feel anxious about how I would be received upon arrival in Lagos. "Did you tell Lolade about us?" I asked, as we lay in bed the night before our trip to Lagos. He looked at me, slightly surprised. "Of course I told her. Once I agreed to pay your bride price, I informed her you would come to Lagos as her co-wife." What was her reaction? What would her reaction be? He asked. "I am a man entitled to marry as many wives as I can support, according to our native laws and customs. Lolade knows this." "Yes, this is true," I concurred, "but it is a little different because she and I are friends." "I don't see why that should be a problem. Is she expecting me to marry an enemy?" When I didn't respond, he wrapped his arm around me and drew me closer. "Listen to me, my darling," he said. "You have no reason to worry. I am the head of the house, and what I say goes. Even if I wanted to marry 10 wives, Lolade has no say in the matter. But to ease your mind, when we arrive in Lagos tomorrow, I will call for a family meeting and issue a stern warning to her in your presence. If she says or does anything to upset you, she will return to her father's house." I smiled, reassured by his words, and set the matter aside until the next day when we arrived in Lagos. We got to Lagos around 7 p.m. and it was already getting dark when we entered the house. The house was nothing like I had expected. It certainly wasn't how I imagined him living in the city. It was a 2-bedroom semi-detached house, filled with furniture and people, making it look crowded and suggesting poverty. I compared it to his house in Ajase and couldn't reconcile how a man living like this in the city could build such a lovely home in the village. Lolade and her children emerged to greet us upon arrival. Although she greeted me with a smile and words of welcome, there was a noticeable absence of genuine warmth in her expression and embrace. I reminded myself that I had not displaced her from her home. I was merely joining her as another wife. Lolade had been aware that marrying Wale meant accepting the possibility that he might one day take a second wife. I refused to allow myself to feel guilty about my arrival, even though I understood that any friendship we had shared in the past was now over. After we had showered and eaten dinner, Wale called a family meeting to discuss the situation openly and set expectations for peaceful coexistence within the household. "I don't need to introduce you to Bisi," he began. "You knew her before I did, but she is not here as your friend. She is my wife and your co-wife, and she must be treated with respect. I won't tolerate any fighting or bickering in this home, whether I am present or not." "There won't be fighting or bickering, my husband," Lolade assured him with a small smile before turning to look at me. "You are welcome, Bisi. This is your husband's house. I have placed your things in the main bedroom. It's important that in the coming months, you spend time with your husband to help you conceive. I will sleep with the children in their bedroom. Once again, you are welcome." Her words filled me with joy. They were precisely what I wanted to hear, and I believed I had won. What I failed to realize was that she was using me to free herself from a husband she no longer loved and a marriage that no longer suited her. While I focused on taking care of Wale, meeting his sexual needs and preparing his meals, Lolade dedicated herself to her own life and her children. She ran a thriving business, frying akara, puff-puff and egg rolls every morning at a temporary stall in front of our house. After finishing her cooking, she would leave, claiming she was going to the market to source supplies for her business, or sometimes that she had to go to the children's school. Wale paid little attention to Lolade's comings and goings, showing increasing indifference towards her whereabouts with each passing day. Initially, I interpreted this as a sign of favor towards me and felt pleased, believing I now held a special place in his affections. However, it did not take long for reality to dawn on me, prompting a gradual awakening from my earlier sense of triumph. As the days went by, I got acquainted with life in Lagos, and my eyes were opened to the city's opulence and the lifestyles of its wealthy inhabitants. Lagos was teeming with affluent men who drove luxurious flashy cars, their affluence far surpassing anything I had previously witnessed. In comparison, Wale's standing seemed diminished. The man I once idolized now appeared ordinary, even impoverished against the backdrop of Lagos's grandeur. The shift in my perception was further compounded by Wale's changed behavior regarding financial matters. Whenever I asked him for money, he offered excuses, insisting he was under significant financial pressure and urging me to be patient. This was a marked departure from his conduct earlier in our relationship, when such requests were met without resistance. Then came the issue of my education. Wale initially agreed that I would enroll in JAM classes once we arrived in Lagos, as I had yet to pass my JAM exam and had been skipping classes after becoming involved with him. But when I asked for money to enroll in the JAM class, he told me to wait. "You will go to school," he assured me, "but not just yet. Have a baby or two first. We have only just got married, and you should focus on giving me children. Once the kids are school-aged, then you can start school yourself." I had been dealt the short end of the stick, yet, faced with little choice, I directed all my energy towards becoming pregnant, and before long I succeeded. After the birth of our son, Tayo, our arguments grew more frequent and intense, especially concerning meeting the baby's needs. My mother couldn't come from Ajase to help me out because Wale couldn't afford it. He asked Lolade to give me the support I need. He also asked me to use the items her babies had used to nurse my child. The tension in our home escalated, culminating in a heated exchange one evening. Tayo was about 10 months old, and he became restless with a fever, so I needed to buy him medication. Once again, Wale had no money for this expenditure, which caused a major row. In frustration, Wale stormed out, got into his car, and drove away. My baby was in visible distress, his cries piercing the air and filling me with anxiety. Lolade entered the room, and without saying much, she handed me some money, enough to buy the medication Tayo desperately needed. Grateful yet still worried, I hurried to the nearest drugstore, purchased the medicine, and rushed back home. I administered the drug to Tayo, watching anxiously as he slowly settled down and drifted into a peaceful sleep. As darkness fell, my thoughts turned to Wale. I tried calling him several times, but each attempt ended in frustration. His phone was switched off. I put my phone away and with quiet steps made my way to the room Lolade shared with her children. I took care to enter softly, ensuring I did not disturb the little ones who were already fast asleep. "Thank you," I whispered. She nodded. "He will be back in the morning." I frowned. "I don't understand." She looked up at me, her eyes locked onto mine. "Your husband," she stated firmly. "He will return in the morning." "Do you know where he's gone?" I asked. She laughed dryly. "Sit down." She patted the space on the single bed where she was sitting. Gingerly, I moved further into the room, glancing at the children sleeping on 2 bunk beds in the corner. "Where is he?" I asked. "He has several mistresses in this city," she said. "He could be with any of them, but he will be back in the morning." "Have you really been living with him like this?" I asked, stunned. She turned to look at me and said, "Welcome to marriage after the honeymoon. He has trapped you. You are not just his wife now. You have also had a baby for him. He is confident no other man will want you now, so you will see the man behind the mask." I sat quietly for a while, reflecting on what she had said. Deep down, I knew her words contained no deception or malice. My heart raced in my chest as I contemplated what would become of my life. "I suggest you find something to do to earn a living," she advised. Her words interrupted my thoughts. "What you have witnessed today is just the beginning. The child you have is now your sole responsibility. From now on, whenever you ask for anything, whether for the child or for yourself, he will claim he has no money and that he is under a lot of financial pressure. I started my business years ago when I recognized the man he is. Even though I live under his roof, I take care of my children without his help. All he does is pay the rent for this house. Our food, my children's upkeep, and their school fees come from the small business I run." "Oh my God," I groaned, burying my face in my hands. She laughed dryly again. "You saw me glowing every time I came to Ajase and thought I was enjoying marriage. He gave you money while wooing you, and you assumed that marrying him was the best choice, even though you were betraying a friend. However, I hold no ill will toward you. When I realized what was happening, I seized the opportunity and used the situation to my advantage." I looked up at her. "What do you mean?" "I have always wanted to go to university," she said, frowning as she recalled her past. "When I married Wale, he didn't have a degree. I shared my dream of pursuing my education with him, and he asked me to wait until he finished first. He earned his bachelor's degree and received a significant promotion and pay raise at work. That's how he was able to build the house in Ajase." When he graduated, I brought up the idea of attending university again. He accused me of trying to compete with him and warned that if I mention it again, I would have to return to my father's house. So I remained silent. Once he became focused on you and frequently traveled to Ajase, I found my opportunity to go to school as he stopped paying attention to my activities. Lolade shared that she had completed her senior secondary certificate exams and passed. She had also participated in a community nursing program to qualify as a licensed community nurse. Additionally, a distant relative in America had arranged care work for her and secured travel documents for herself and her children to leave Nigeria. That night I couldn't sleep as I thought about what she had told me. Part of me didn't want to believe her. Why would she share such information? Didn't she fear I would tell Wale and he would stop her trip and cancel her plans? The following morning, I woke up in an empty house. Lolade and her children were gone, disappeared without even a farewell note. I later realized that she had told me those things, knowing they had a flight to catch in a few hours and would leave before Wale returned. And that's how I ended up with the short end of the stick. The woman I had become a co-wife with had outsmarted me, using me as a diversion to plan her escape from a marriage that had turned into her prison. While I foolishly basked in the attention of a man who wasn't worth 2 pennies, Lolade had plotted her future and made her escape, leaving her husband behind for me. Now he was mine, completely mine, but did I really want him? Absolutely not. Over the next few months, I became increasingly dissatisfied with my life, particularly as I kept hearing updates about Lolade and how well she was doing in America with her children. Within a year of leaving, she sent money back home to return her bride price to Wale, and she became free. She was free while I was trapped, lacking access to school or funds to start a business. I looked unkempt and felt older than my years. I acted quickly before I found myself with a second baby. One day, while he was at work, I took Tayo, who had just turned 2, to the creche and returned to Ajase to rebuild my life. I hoped my parents would assist me, but unfortunately, they didn't. You cannot abandon your child and your marriage, my mother said. Return and endure with your husband. No marriage is perfect. I am in my husband's house weathering the storm. Go back to your husband's house and weather the storm. Upon my return, an enraged Wale confronted me. The inconvenience I had caused him, not only by leaving Tayo in his care, but also by the embarrassment I had brought upon him in front of both our families by fleeing to Ajase, fueled his fury. The repercussions of my actions were swift and severe. I encountered a side of Wale that I had never fully seen before. A man who, besides his stinginess, irresponsibility, and infidelity, was also capable of physical violence towards his wife. As I faced the consequences of my choices, I realized I had no one to blame but myself. The life I now led was a direct result of the decisions I had made, and I would have to accept my circumstances and live with what I had chosen. The end. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of episode 13 of DOZ Monologues. DOZ Monologues will return next week with another episode. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave your comments and subscribe, like and share if listening on YouTube. To contact me, please visit my website eturuvie.erebor.com or email me at eturuvie@eturuvieerebor.com. I invite all story lovers to explore my novels and novellas Available on Amazon and Google Books. For audiobook enthusiasts, they are also on Audible. Thank you for listening. I am your favorite storyteller, Eturuvie Erebor, and I'll be here next Friday with another story.